This is where business relationships get real interesting because sometimes the biggest fallout is not what happened behind closed doors. It's what happens when somebody decides to take those closed door problems to the internet. Cameron is basically explaining why he'd rather keep certain business relationships private. There's also a line you just don't want people to cross.
The honor up issue. And it's still going on. Sad to say, it's still going on. But your opinion on honor up kind of, snowballed or whatever. You regret that? You regret talking about honor up?
Nah. What's up, boo-boo? Nah. No, only thing I do regret is getting baited into that.
That's a real business lesson right here. Sometimes somebody can keep poking at you publicly until you finally respond. And then suddenly, your response becomes the whole story. That's how you get baited. Especially when you've got years of history with somebody, you have to ask yourself, am I solving the problem or am I giving the internet a front row seat to our problems? Because once it goes public, you can't really put it back in the bottle.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it was a trap because he kept talking about me on other platforms. And then the last thing he says, like, Cam ain't even promote Honor Up. So I gave my opinion on Honor Up and then it just snowballed. And I'm like, so the reason I regret getting baited into it, but I'd rather him get all that off his chest. You don't get all the shit that he's doing now from me saying Honor Up is whack. This is all that was inside, pause. All that was like, yo, I need a reason to let all this out. So, like I said on another show, I'm like, I wish it didn't have to be the internet. Anybody that I'm cool with or made money with or like I consider my brother at one time or another, I don't care who it is. I've never went public with our problems until they went public. It's people now, like I said on another show, that I don't speak to now that people may think I speak to. And you won't know if I'm not speaking to them because I'm not going to put out business in the street because I've known these 20, 30 years, whatever it is. So the world don't need to know that.
This is probably the part that stands out the most. In business, you can fall out with somebody and still have enough respect for the relationship that you don't feel the need to tell everybody what happened. That's especially true when you build something together, made money together, or considered that person family at one point. And that's a different level of discipline. Because being quiet doesn't mean you don't have a story. Sometimes it just means you have respect for the history enough to not tell it.
These be putting personal business in the street, which is fine with me. Because when I have to defend myself, hey, Bill, when I have to defend myself, I'm just going to tell the truth. That's what's really disappointing about not just with Homeboy, with a few, the lies. They're lying.
Word.
And try to motherfucker rearrange history. They be like, God damn, bro, I didn't know you was a liar too.
And that's really the bigger lesson here. Not every business fallout needs a podcast episode, a social media post, or a public explanation. Sometimes you just move on and keep the relationship where it is. But if somebody decides to take private business public and then start changing the story, you have every right to defend your name. And when you look at somebody like Cameron's history with people in business, including the world around Dipset and Dame Dash, that approach to loyalty, privacy, and eventually telling your side is a pretty important part of the story.